Claire and Jayden tied the knot a few years back. Claire had always been surrounded by many admirers, but Jayden managed to capture her heart and make her his spouse. Though they'd yet to plan for children, they were figuring out their domestic affairs. They aimed to upgrade from Jayden's cramped apartment to a more commodious home and were diligently saving up for it. Naturally, it was mostly Jayden doing the saving. Claire had a gig as an administrator, working rotating shifts, and her days off would often fall during the week. She didn't seek employment elsewhere and preferred to spend her days off hanging out with pals. She was firm in her belief that it was the man's job to be the breadwinner since he's the leader of the family. Recognizing that his wife wasn't about to make any changes in her job, Jayden took on the heavy lift of working hard enough for the both of them. One day, after an exhaustive presentation followed by intricate negotiations, he decided it was time for a breather and opted to take a stroll in the park near his workplace. He was flying solo. He stepped out for a quick 15-minute break to clear his head. As Jayden wandered by a bench, he noticed an elderly man who seemed to have settled there contentedly. On closer inspection, he saw the man was homeless. Their eyes met, and the old man swiftly asked him for some cash. Now, Jayden wasn't a fan of street beggars and turned him down. The elderly man's tone shifted. "Are you squirreling away cash for your wife so she can have a good time with someone else? I've seen her. A striking blonde, indeed. But mate, you're in the dark about her secret," he rasped and chuckled gruffly. The husband shot the vagrant a disdainful look and marched back to his office, resolving not to dwell on the ramblings of a madman. Yet, inexplicably, the old geezer's words lingered in his thoughts. Ever have someone say something that just plays on a loop in your brain? That's exactly what happened here. The raucous laugh and cryptic mention of a secret kept nudging at the corners of his mind. Days turned into weeks, and the fabric of their relationship began to fray. Claire started pulling away, although her husband couldn't pinpoint a clear reason. She turned secretive, as though withholding something from him. On a few occasions, she returned late from work, grumbling about overwhelming tasks and lack of time. Odd, since she'd always been efficient and punctual, never prone to dragging her feet. This shift in behavior made her husband reflect on the old man's peculiar observation in the park. Could it be that he had actually witnessed something significant? The following afternoon, amidst his lunch interval, Jayden revisited the park and encountered the vagrant once more. The elderly man, upon spotting Jayden, flashed a knowing grin, immediately aware of the reason for his return. He demanded cash in exchange for information, compelling Jayden to fork over the payment. "And how can you verify that the person you're referring to is indeed my wife?" Jayden queried, reluctant to relinquish the money. In response, the old man detailed her features and even mentioned a name he had caught during their conversation. The details were accurate, so Jayden handed over the funds. Then the streetwise informant revealed that although he initially saw her with Jayden and deduced their marital connection, on several occasions he observed her accompanied by another gentleman. With this man, her demeanor was noticeably more casual than with her spouse. The tramp pinpointed their meetings to Tuesdays and Thursdays. From the description provided, Jayden couldn't discern the identity of this other man. He expressed his gratitude to the old man and departed, his mind still teeming with suspicion, wary of a stranger who could merely be extorting money from unsuspecting parkgoers. Jayden resolved to trail his wife on the designated days, particularly her cherished weekends dedicated to outings with friends. This way, he could authenticate all the details. Jayden ingeniously embedded a minuscule program on his wife's phone to effortlessly track her every move. The only remaining challenge was ensuring his presence, amidst his work obligations, when she departed from their abode and embarked on her subsequent trajectory. Lo and behold, the weekend arrived. Yet, on an anomalous Tuesday, she did not venture far from their domicile. She ventured to the store, subsequently frequented the local produce emporium situated at the corner of their residence, and according to the map, never exited again. Anxious for the truth to unravel, Jayden awaited the arrival of Thursday. However, being cautious, he intermittently inspected the map on his mobile device on Wednesday. During the subsequent weekend, Claire's movements assumed a more bustling nature. By mid-afternoon, she had already journeyed to a site on the far side of town. Seizing the opportunity, Jayden skillfully orchestrated an early departure from work and hastened to collect her. Evidently betraying caution, it appeared that if there was indeed another man, today they had opted for a direct rendezvous without any superfluous preamble, like a romantic stroll in the park. His spouse had already stepped into a rather shabby building with grimy panels. From the big windows in the foyer, Jayden roughly deduced which unit his wife had stationed herself in. "All right, I'll give it 30 minutes, then I'll head up," he reckoned. On the dot, he made his way inside, bided while some occupants exited, and proceeded to the right floor. Answering his persistent knocking, the young fellow who occupied the apartment emerged, a fellow who perfectly matched the description of the vagrant from the park. So, he wasn't misled after all. It didn't take much to figure out who was who. It seemed like the lover had anticipated such an encounter, and he quietly ushered Jayden into the apartment. There, Claire lay comfortably in bed, only covered by a sheet, nibbling on some fruit. When her husband stepped into the room, she almost choked from shock. She had mistaken him for a courier her lover had been expecting. Claire could no longer feign innocence. The scene spoke volumes. Staring at him with wide, terrified eyes and a ghostly pale face, she was speechless. Jayden was silent for a moment, and then stated clearly, "Don't you dare cross the threshold of my apartment anymore. Your things will be waiting at the door." And with that he left. He had no desire to waste his energy on the two of them. They just weren't worth his time. Jayden returned home, collected all his unfaithful wife's belongings and took them outside. An hour later, her sister came to pick them up, as Claire herself was too scared to meet her husband face to face. Since she had nowhere else to go, Claire decided that she would move in with her lover. However, the reality disappointed her greatly. A few months back, they crossed paths, although he was fully aware that he was involved with a married woman. And as was usually the case, he found himself in a comfortable position. No need to woo or pursue her. Their relationship bore no special responsibilities. Thus, he calmly declined moving in with her, knowing that it would be effortless to find another just like her. Claire had to resort to renting a room since she lacked the funds for her own apartment. This also prompted her to reevaluate her job, as she had relied mostly on her husband's income, reserving her own earnings for personal indulgences. She didn't even attempt to resume communication with her former spouse. Instead, only searching for someone new and on dates, using the excuse that their personalities simply didn't mesh.